So I'm back. Why is social media, or sorry, what? Yeah, I'll pull if I can read, won't I? What are social media and why do they matter? This is video 2, 12 slides to go through here, but they're quite in depth, so this might be a little longer. So pay attention and listen to what I'm saying, and yeah, all that good stuff. What is the social in social media is really what I want to get into here. Talked briefly at the end of the previous video about Anthony Giddens and his work, and Tanya Bucher's notion of program sociality as well, and how therefore the systems that we use in everyday life condition us in particular ways to act in certain ways, and therefore how the social in social media, if you like, is conditioned in part by the media itself. Now, in order to understand this further, we need to have some understanding of what exactly the social has been theorized in the past. So I'm going to go through a few sort of sociological definitions of the social. Starting with Emil Durkheim, the father of modern sociology, who saw the social as social facts. And a social fact is every way of acting, fixed or not, capable of exercising on the individual or an external constraint. Or again, every way of acting which is general throughout a given society, while at the same time existing in its own right, independent of its individual manifestations, according to Durkheim's great work on this matter. What does that actually mean? Well, all media and all software are social in the sense that they are products of social processes. Humans in social relations produce these things, and social media are social because social structures are encoded within social media themselves. If you like, web technologies and social media are social facts of themselves. So when Durkheim says that the social is social facts, which is how the possibilities of the social come together through social relations. Social media are a form of social relation. They are created in a particular way to facilitate a particular form of socialization. And at that point, we might want to think about the question of who creates social media. When you see a character like Mark Zuckerberg, right, and you look at Mark Zuckerberg and you understand his politics and his view of human beings and his view of the world, and then you look at the systems that he has created, you start to think, okay, well, what kind of social relations are possible through the systems created by a man like Mark Zuckerberg with his notions of sociality, if he has one at all. So it does raise questions, this Durkheimian sort of position. So we can start with what is the social in social media. With Durkheim's notion is that the social is the social facts, every way of possibly acting, and social media constrains us in these ways, just as sort of Giddens' notion of constraint and enablement was. If we looked further on in the history of sociology, you got Max Weber and the social as social relations. And there are two categories of social relations according to Weber: social action and social behavior. Action is social insofar as its subjective meaning takes account of the behavior of others and is thereby oriented in its course. Basically what Weber is telling us here is that actions are always social because they are directed towards other people. They are in a social context. And so therefore, the term social relationship will be used to denote the behavior of a plurality of actors insofar as, in its meaningful content, the action of each takes account of that of the others and is oriented in those terms. What Weber is telling us is that all our actions in a social system are oriented towards everyone else within that system. And so therefore, when we're thinking about social media, what we do on social media is motivated by these social actions, where we are looking to act in a way that will engage other social actors in our activities. There is nothing as sad as a tweet that has no likes, and there is nothing as sad as an image on Instagram that has no likes. And what Weber is telling us is that our social actions are directed towards gaining the attention of others in those particular things, because we're in terms of social relationships, we are in a web of social relationships interconnected by social media, in which all our activities are designed to is motivated by the presence of others within that system. So these categories are relevant for the discussion because they allow a distinction between individual and social activities. Therefore, Weber stresses that in order to constitute a social relation, behavior needs to be meaningful, symbolic interaction between different actors, like sharing a picture on Instagram. meaningful, symbolic interaction between different human actors. Social media therefore facilitates particular kinds of interaction of this sort, but the manner of those actions is mediated by the platform or social networking site used. And that is really a very, very important point when we talk about the social in social media. I keep on banging this drum, but social media and social media sites mediate and control what kind of social activities we can take part in by virtue of the affordances that that platform gives us. Some allow us to share certain things, some don't, etc., etc. If you need an example of that, think of the tweet, the character limit on Twitter, for example. It used to be 140, now it's 280. That was a constrainment of what social behavior could happen on Twitter effectively between actors, because you were constrained by how you could express yourself. And indeed, Twitter flare-ups often were the result of having to fit something into 140 characters and therefore losing nuance. So, further on in the history of sociology, what is the social and social media? Ferdinand Tönnies, the social as community. The very existence of Gemeinschaft or community rests in the consciousness of belonging together and the affirmation of the condition of mutual dependence, according to Tönnies. So Gesellschaft, or the overall society, which is above Gemeinschaft or community, for Tönnies is a concept in which reference to only objective fact of a unity based on common traits and activities of other external phenomena. What he's saying is not that society doesn't exist. Okay, I don't think Tönnies thinks that for 1 minute. But society is made up basically of all the communities that come underneath it, and society is therefore made up at the base level of the communities that we make up with one another. Communities have to work within a harmonious consensus of wills, folkways, belief, mores, the family, the village, kinship, inherited status, agriculture, morality, essential will, and togetherness. Community is about feeling of togetherness and values. Social media can facilitate community, therefore, and therefore can be a constituent building block, or a constituent part of the building blocks of society itself, if social media allows us to work within a harmonious consensus of wills. We might want to think about whether that's the case with our own social media use and with the social media use of others. But another way to think of the social is the social as community, as Tönnies puts forward this. And it's an interesting way, because this opens up perhaps a line of attack about how social media is anti-social. At this point of this video, you might be asking, right, we've had like Durkheim, Weber, Tönnies. I've never heard of these guys. Perhaps I hope some of you have. And what the fuck is the point? Very good question. Assignment 2 for this module, which I'll talk about in the third video, you're going to have to mention one of these guys, at least one of them, in terms of how your individual project, assignment 1, has made you think about the social. So you're going to have to do a bit of reading around this. Final theorist I want to talk about is one you've all heard of, Karl Marx. For Marx, the social is cooperative work. Marx and Engels argued that cooperation is the essence of society. In capitalism, it becomes assumed under capital, so that it is alienated labour can only be fully developed in a free society. So for Marx and Engels, cooperation is the essence of the social. And there's a long quote there. I'm not going to read out the entire quote. We have here 4 competing versions of what the social is. And like I just said, what I want you to do is think about what social media means to you and what version of the social here actually fits with your usage and the context of your usage of social media. What I suspect will happen is that you'll come to the conclusion that there are a number of different ways of thinking about the social which vary according to practice. Ding, 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 ding. That's the correct answer, by the way. So cooperation, according to Marx, is a foundation of human existence. Cooperation is the foundation of capitalism. The basic idea underlying Marx's notion of cooperation is that many human beings work together to produce goods to satisfy human needs, and that therefore is society. And it is interesting that Marx already had a vision of a globally networked information system in his work Das Kapital. He didn't speak of the internet, but he did speak about globalization in terms of flows of capital and indeed flows of information. That notion of cooperation is one that we don't often think about in terms of social media, but it is an important one because we do use social media to cooperate and to coordinate, and in which case Marx's version of what the social is then becomes quite attractive. So Turney's and Mark's notion of the social having common, the idea that humans work together in order to produce new qualities of society, non-physical ones, shared feelings in the case of Turney's, and material ones in the case of Mark's. We can go further than this. If we look at the work of Jörg Simmel, for Simmel, society is not a separate reality of its own, but society merely is the name for a number of individuals connected by interactions. Society is not a substance, not concrete, but it is instead an event, a continually unfolding event, if you like. It is the function of receiving and affecting the fate and development of one individual by the other. So for Simmel, society is nothing but our lived experience with other people. And social forces are not external to, not necessarily constraining for the individual, quite opposite to what Anthony Giddens argues. Rather, it's individuals who reproduce society every living moment through their actions and interactions. And therefore, on social media, we are making and reproducing society constantly through the actions that we perpetrate on social media. And that should horrify you when you think about not just what you do on social media, but what you see other people do. Ritzer notes that Simmel disagreed with Durkheim, that society is a real material entity, and he did not view society as merely a collection of individuals. Rather, he adopted the position of society as a set of interactions. So, for Jörg Simmel, if we think about the social in social media, what we do creates the social. Since the rise of social media to predominance in Western society, we should take a step back and think, oh my God, if Simmel's right, then society is completely rotten, because you see the shit that goes on in social media, and you see how social media has been used to perpetrate things around the world, and then you think, oh my word, what are we doing? It is the end of times. And yes, it is the end of times. I've been saying this for a long time. You know, it's due to my crippling lack of charisma that I can't get anyone to join my doomsday cult. But if I could, then we would be celebrating the end of times, and then I would show people what I meant. What is the social in social media? What Simmel is arguing is that society itself is only constituted by the series of interactions between members of that society, and therefore social media is an integral part of society if it itself is critical to the interactions between members of society, which it is. Which we already know by the traffic that goes through social media, but we already know by our everyday lives as well. Other media have not been successful in doing this. Some, like television, for example, have hugely important roles within society. But social media is vastly more important than television ever was. So as a medium that is social, we have social media involves the knowledge processes and cognition of individuals. Yes. Involves the symbolic exchange of information through communications and relations. Yes. Involves communication over time, cooperation which results in the emergence of shared values and social systems. Yes. And involves a series of interactions that themselves can be thought of as foundational to society. Yes. So the social in social media involves all of these great sociological thinkers and their insights. And like I said, when you're thinking about your own concept of the social in social media, you will lean towards perhaps Weber away from Simmel at times, okay? But the sort of activity that you analyze for your work will lead you towards those things, and that's fine. But what I want to illustrate here is that when we think about that word social, we have a number of ways of unpacking it, and they are all there in social media. The kind of society that is produced by social media is therefore contingent on these things: the knowledge and cognition of actors, the symbolic interchanges between actors, and the nature of cooperation fostered through the medium. It is through these 3 points that let this fourth emerge that we should concentrate when thinking about social media cultures. The fourth being the emergence of social media culture. So, we have to always be thinking about the knowledge and cognition of the actors, the symbolic interchanges between actors, and the nature of cooperation fostered through the medium. And again, we look at everyday exchanges on social media, and we should just bury our head in our hands. The knowledge and cognition of actors. Have you been on Facebook? Oh my God. The symbolic exchanges between people. Oh my word. And the nature of cooperation fostered. No wonder society is falling apart. Is it any... I digress.